Okay, we are live now. Good morning, audience, and welcome to another session of Sustainable Saturday. Today, we have with us Ambika Gandotra. Ambika is the Director of Corporate Relations here at Green Yatra. She comes from a management background from NMIMS College in Mumbai. She has vast experience in the field of marketing and business development, communications, and corporate relations. Her hobbies include yoga, dramatics, and involving in outreach initiatives. She's a self driven individual, passionate about climate change mitigation and creating the necessary awareness around it. Today, Ambika will be speaking with us and sharing with us her insights on environment and spirituality. So, over to you, Ambika ma'am. Let's start with first understanding what is the difference exactly between spirituality and religion, or are they interchangeable? What exactly are they?
Okay, so thank you, Sandra, for the introduction, and a very warm welcome to everybody who's tuned in today. At the onset, I would like to say that the reason why I'm first of all choosing a topic like environment and spirituality is not because I am an expert on the subject matter of environment or even spirituality for that matter, but the reason why I'm even delving on this topic today is because I feel that there is a very strong need to have these talks, and there is also a hope that how having understood certain aspects of both these topics has kind of motivated me to do whatever little I can do in my capacity to make a difference. And I hope that after my conversation today, even if some people get inspired, or it resonates with somebody and they start looking at the little things that they could do on a daily basis to make a difference in this direction, then I think that this talk has meaning. All right, so let's get started with first what is spirituality, and you asked whether it is similar to religion or can they be used interchangeably as words, right?
Yes.
So, when you talk about religion, and this is as per my understanding, religion is basically, it's like an organized entity of, people coming together and indulging in, say, rituals or certain kind of practices, and they are reaching out to, say, a higher energy or God, and kind of, it's a little bit, in my understanding, and outwardly way of understanding certain aspects of life, or just hoping that it brings peace to their mind, or something's on those lines. This is my take on it. But when I talk about spirituality, I think spirituality is more like a personal quest. It's like a need to, from a very personalized and individual perspective, understand what is the meaning of life, things like who you are, where have you come from, why are you even here, what is the construct of human mechanics, right? Or even for that matter, how you are over here as an individual, as part of this cosmos. There are so many aspects. Why are we even here? What is life all about, right? It is actually trying to understand the fundamentals of human existence and even life in general. So, if I have to give a definition to spirituality and my own, based on my own understanding of it, I would probably say that spirituality is like, it's like a canvas on which you can paint any picture of life, depending on what your individual inclination is. So there is freedom. It's not rigid in its structure. So this is what I would feel is the fundamental difference between religion and spirituality.
Wow, that is really insightful, ma'am. So then, why this topic? What exactly is the link between environment and spirituality?
First, let me just touch a little bit upon what is environment. Let's talk generically about what is the word environment mean. So, if you go with a technical definition of this word, then it actually comes from this French preposition called environ, which I also just recently looked up. I didn't know this. But what the meaning is basically, it means around. So, when you look at the word environment, it basically talks about whatever it is there in your immediate surrounding, it constitutes as your environment. So, it's a very, very vast field, and it kind of like encompasses so many things as part of it, just like spirituality in that sense. And when you look at things, very very fundamental things which which have come to my attention, and it's so fundamental and so simple, but you miss it. Like when you look at plants and you look at human beings, right? You're inhaling, what they are exhaling, and vice versa. Isn't that right?
Correct.
You look at any kind of aspect. I mean, how okay, look at oxygen for that matter, right? Can we do it without the air around us? We can't, right? You look at water. Where is it coming from? Right? We know that these are all natural resources. You look at air, you look at sunlight, you look at water, you look at food, you look at soil health, you look at nutrition. Where are all these things coming from? It's literally like, someone is asking you, what is the difference between, or what is the connect between you and your mother? Because you're actually, this is your nurturer, this is your provider, this is something which is, making sure that you are alive and, functioning. So when I see such a strong connect, between the environment, and I'm talking specifically about, just the five elements, which a human being is so inherently and so intimately connected with, I can't think of how they are separate. I don't even think that you can even say that we exist without it. So, such profoundness is the kind of connection that we have with our environment.
Okay, that is really it's nice that the environment. It's nice to think of it in this perspective that we are a part of the environment. It's something that we need, and hence
And not the
it's
other way around, like
correct.
we think, yeah.
So, ma'am, can you tell me about how spiritual practices, such as mindfulness or meditation, how do these practices help us to deepen our connection with maybe nature and not just nature for that matter, to promote environmental awareness? How are these incorporated, in our daily life to strengthen this bond with Mother Nature?
Okay. So, Sandra, you would, we've all seen babies, right? I mean, we've seen so many babies, and the one thing that has always stood out in my mind when I look at a child is that they are not conditioned with any kind of behavior protocol. So when you look at a child, and even if you're looking at them and you're making faces, they have this look on their face like of wonder. They're just looking at you, staring. This is curiosity, right? This is the inherent nature of everybody. I mean, I would say, like, I mean, you would have heard of this terminology called the curious cat, right?
Hmm.
You've seen
Yeah.
a cat how it is, right? This is a certain wonder, right? Now when this wonder gets very much channelized towards your own self, you're anyways wondering about everything that's around you, right? This is in our nature. We are curious about everything, and so are probably all the species on this planet, different probably levels of interest. But the bottom line is that we are curious by nature.
Mhm.
So when we are curious about everything in life, it's only very natural for us to be curious about who we are. I mean, why are we here? What is the purpose of life? This is the question which has dazzled everybody, and this is something which I have been very much, intrigued with for, I guess, as long as I can remember, right? So the point that I'm trying to make over here is that when you are being spiritual, largely you're only wanting to understand what makes this human being function. What is the mechanics of how we can be living life to our highest potential, right? Now, when you talk about, drawing a connection between spiritual practices and environment, and when I already specified that, there is such a huge connect between the environment and an individual, that it's almost like, we are a part of our environment. We as human beings are just one aspect of environment. The environment is
Correct.
like is everything that surrounds us, right? So the fundamental thing is that when you become spiritual, or when you have, or when you actually act upon it, I think everybody is spiritual on some level or the other, but when you actually take interest in it and you put your energies towards it, and you realize how closely you are related to everything that's around you, it just becomes, a part of you to, take care of everything that's around you. And that is why spiritual practices are important, is because it's like, it's like you're a part, this whole body is your part, okay? And does somebody have to tell you that, oh Sandra, you need to take care of your hand, or you should not do that, or don't put it next to fire, or don't do this to it? You don't need to do that, right? Because you're aware that this whole body is yours. Similarly, when you experience yourself as part of an ecosystem, as part of a planet, nobody has to tell you don't litter, pick up your garbage, don't put plastic over here, please create plants, our survival is dependent on it, and so on and so forth. I mean, one very simple thing which a lot of people missed is that, we talk so much about nutrition and health and everything, especially because, the pandemic is just, gone or it's still going on its way out. The nutrition that is coming in the food, where is the nutrition in the food coming from? It's coming from the soil.
Correct.
Soil is not created by man, right? The organic content which is there in the soil is actually the one which is providing nutrition into the plant that you are consuming. And then in turn, your body is able to use that energy to function. Does one really need to go, any more deep into this topic to understand how closely we are related? But then the fundamental question again comes that why are we missing out on something which is so basic? Why is something so intrinsic being missed out? And this is the reason why we talk about awareness. And now that you talk about things like mindfulness and awareness, and your question originally was that how we can use this to strengthen our bond with our environment. This is exactly the thing. I would also like to point out that when you're mindful of something, you are paying your attention to it. And if you remember, Einstein talking correctly about this aspect, it was very clearly mentioned that whatever you put your attention on, your energy or your energy is going the direction of your focus, right? So when I'm being mindful, when I'm being aware, obviously my perspective of that thing becomes much, much more enhanced and clearer. It's like this. If you're walking in a maze, right, and let's just say there are various options and you need to go to the end goal, but if you're in the maze, it's very difficult to maneuver. But let's just say you have an aerial perspective. Now you're looking at things from the top. How clearly do you see the maze? You know the shortest way, the fastest way to get to where you are. So
Correct.
this is what spiritual perspective does to you. If spirituality seeps into you, if you get a sense, a higher perspective, or let's just say the right perspective in terms of understanding how things are functioning, nobody needs to come and tell you anything. Everybody will do what is needed to be done. So I think this is something which really helps. And let me touch a little bit upon awareness and mindfulness. Okay, like I mentioned. So this is all coming from my understanding, experiential, and also through the wisdom of many many people that have contributed in shaping this journey for me. So what I see is that when I'm looking at, let's say, I'm making a concerted effort on, say, picking up an object, okay, and I want to be mindful about it. So I'm going to focus all my energies on trying to make sure I pick it up in a very conscious manner, a very mindful manner. But at that time, am I being really aware of what is happening around me? Chances are not, because I have given all my attention in one direction and
Correct.
I'm focused over there. So this is what means mind. This is what is mindfulness. Now, when I talk about awareness, awareness is again a larger perspective. As in, you can come to a state, as an individual within yourself, where you are just aware of everything that's happening, while it does not take away from the immediate activity at hand. And for this aspect, I would like to quote, a very prominent individual, Jiddu Krishnamurti, and fantastic learning, from this individual. And he used this particular word, which has stayed with me, and the word is choiceless awareness. When you're doing, and this is like also a very big difference between what I feel is between mindfulness and awareness, is that mindfulness is like making an effort to do things in a certain way, and awareness is it's ease. You're just aware. It's like a different perspective of functioning from. So I feel like the journey of an individual on the spiritual path is probably, in my understanding, to come from a level of applying tools like mindfulness and being meditative and creating situations to become meditative naturally, but moving towards a state where you are in such a level of awareness that you're able to do everything seamlessly without missing out on anything else, or not taking away from it. Does that answer your question?
It does. It definitely does. In fact, it answers more than what I actually intended to ask. So I was wondering then, now that we are speaking about environment, and how environment is also an important aspect of this particular thing, right? So climate change is really picking pace now. Like more people are getting aware about it. More people are trying, making an effort to learn about it. But I feel after hearing what you say, somewhere when it comes to this whole education aspect of climate, climate change and everything,
Mhm.
mindfulness is never really spoken about. Do you think when we are talking about climate change in particular, mindfulness can be incorporated in that? If yes, then how?
Okay. So I will talk about what has worked for me or is continuing to work for me. And, so I'm a practicer of, I practice yoga. And the word yoga itself means union, right? And when you're talking about a union, you're not talking about any external union. You're talking about a certain kind of alignment that you come within yourself, right? Now, Sandra, on a particular day, let's just say you're having a terrible day. You're within yourself, you're just disturbed and confused, right? What are the chances that you are going to do a phenomenal job with whoever it is that is coming your way? I'm asking you.
No, definitely. I'm going to be so cranky about it.
Exactly, because it's spilling out of you, right? There is something which is going on inside of you, and now even if you're in the best scenario, in the most beautiful place in the world, but if there is something that's going on inside of you, and it's not allowing you to just be or experience anything that's happening outside of you, what becomes more relevant in life? I'm not trying to undermine everything that person is doing outside. Our world is a certain way, and there are conveniences and comforts that we are experiencing right now. But how are we within ourselves? That is something which is addressed by yoga, because if you are in a certain amount of alignment within yourself, now whatever is happening outside of you, you are better equipped to deal with it. Because truth be told, you cannot really influence anything that's happening around you. Circumstances are not going to be in your hand ever. Okay, so the only thing that you can really work upon is yourself. So if there
Correct.
are tools and there are practices which give you that semblance, okay, or if there are tools and practices like the ones that I am following, they help you to try and create a certain gap between this verbal diarrhea that's going on in your mind, that you want to get away from, because there's sometimes you don't want to think about something, but compulsively you are at it. And it takes away your attention and energy from what it is that you should actually be doing out there, right? It consumes you. So when you have a certain tool which can show you that, okay, I'm going in this compulsive pattern and I can stop this and I can take a break from it, or I can have a little distance between the compulsive thought process which is coming and steer my life the way I want to. That is such an empowering thing, to know that you have the choice to focus on or to do something that you want to do, not because it is compulsively happening inside your head. The same thing gets extended to your body, irrespective of what's happening in your body and your mind. These practices are there for you to make use of. And the key thing over here is consistency. This is something which I feel is the game changer, and this is something, and I'm not talking over here as an authority on any of it. This is my life's work. This is an ongoing thing for me. I'm also trying to strike that particular balance wherein I'm able to include everything in my life, but I do it on the canvas of spirituality. I want spirituality to be the fundamental basis which helps me to address every aspect of life. And like I was talking to you about, the techniques that we use in yoga or we do in meditation, the whole idea is that you can't ever do meditation. This is something which I actually I learned recently. You can create certain environment within yourself. You can create a certain situation within yourself, and meditation can be allowed to just freely flow through you. It's like the similar thing between logically deriving a conclusion of something and intuitively arriving at it, right? You can do
Hmm.
certain calculations and you can do certain kind of checks on things and you can, arrive to some kind of a conclusion. But there is someone who just inherently knows, they just know. There's no particular stepwise thing to it, but they know, right? Similarly, I feel mindfulness is something again which you can come on, you can take certain steps and do it, but you need to just create an ambience around you within yourself. There are certain tools and steps that you can take, and you can become meditative as a person. And I feel like yoga is one simple way, which can be taught to everybody alike. And right now, why is even yoga gaining that kind of traction? Is because people are feeling the need for it. It's more rampant than any ever time we have known before. So children, of course, children definitely should, I mean, my advice is that, yoga is also misunderstood and it gets kind of attached to a particular kind of culture and religion and, all of that. But, yoga is about a human possibility. If you're human, it works for you. So I feel like, there are tools out there, and I'm not going to advocate only yoga, but I'm just saying that, whatever it is that you find resonance with, and it stands the test of time because it has to work for you in every situation. So I'll say that I have been reading a lot of books while growing up. I have been following many practices, and finally I found resonance with a certain spiritual master, and that is Sadhguru. And my thought process and everything that right now is functioning within me is very much influenced by his teachings and the practices, because the whole difference between spirituality and religion, like we mentioned earlier, is that it has to be an inner experience. I can intellectually understand a lot of teachings, but if it does not have any experientially, dimension to it, an experiential dimension to it, then I'm just taking a teaching and it's just like taking somebody else's word for it. But now, because of the practices or whatever it is that has come my way, there are glimpses of it, and which is why when I talk about it, it comes from no need for any kind of validation from anywhere outside, because when you know something is working for you, you just know that you need to get better at applying those tools, you need to be more consistent at doing those things, but it's working. And Sandra, in today's time, especially when we are on the verge of a mental pandemic, it's very important that you find one thing in life that truly stands the test of time and that works for you, and you hold on to it for dear life.
Yes. Everything that you've spoken just now just reminds me of, it brought to me the post I came across, on social media just a few days back, because social media, Gen Z. So it basically said that, if you take an orange and you squeeze an orange, you will most definitely always get an orange juice. You're not at it's very unlikely you will get like an apple juice or grape juice. It's similarly when there is some kind of a problem that comes into your life, how much ever you may be aware that you need to be positive and have a positive outlook towards it. Okay, but internally, if there is that trouble when something is squeezing you, there will be trouble that flows out. No positivity is going to flow out at all. And you have so beautifully put that into words that, we need to come in alignment with our mind and our body, and only then will we actually be able to, do something good out there. So that brings me to my final question. So, what advice would you like to, give individuals who are looking to incorporate spiritual principles into everyday life and become more environmentally conscious?
Sure. So, like I was mentioning, there's actually something interesting that I'd like to share over here, and I think it's relevant to the question that you're asking. So, the goldfish, okay, it is known for its lack of attention span, and the attention span of a goldfish, if I'm not mistaken, is I think 8 seconds, okay.
Yeah, somewhere
And
there.
the Gen Z now is supposed to be having an attention span of 2 seconds lesser than that, okay, which is seconds, okay. And the millennials are, I think, just about 11 or 12 seconds, okay, in terms of their attention span. But there is research which shows that a 9 to an 11-year-old individual should at least have an attention span of 20 to 30 seconds at
Hmm.
least. Sorry, 20 to 30 minutes, okay. And the attention span of person who is 16 years and above should at least be 30 or 50 minutes above and above.
Yeah.
So if you look at this, and like how I was mentioning earlier, that a person's attention span is where his energies are going to go, or his or her energies are going to go, right? So if you're not able to remain focused on anything for more than 6 seconds, you know, And clearly we know that in life, if you're not involved with something, it doesn't really give you any results, so where is the possibility of anything really beautiful happening? It doesn't have to be only commercially viable and significant for it to be beautiful, but just as an individual, just to bloom as a life, where is that possibility if you're not able to just be with anything for more than 6 to 7 seconds? And the cause that has been attributed to this significant drop in attention span is actually about media and the content and the fast-paced movement of visual graphics and audio graphics that we are looking at, and that is what is getting us habituated to move to other things faster. Now every individual has some kind of desire. They're coming to this planet wanting to do something right with their life. If this basic thing of not being able to be fully present, is not there, nothing substantial can happen. And when your mind is such a mess, we are talking about seeking an inner alignment. Here we are not able to keep our eyes open and look at something and focus on that. So what are we going to really achieve? So I feel like I don't want to prescribe. There is no one solution to this. But one has to understand the gravity of the situation. We are on the verge of a mental pandemic, which basically means that 1 out of 2 people is going to have a mental disease. If the very faculty that you're using to process data is faulty, and faulty to a point where you're considered as mentally ill, there is no hope. So, in this time, especially, there is so much of a need for us to do whatever it is that we can find resonance with. Whatever we find is useful, that can help us to at least be at a certain space within us and at ease within ourselves. It's very, very important for us to, have these conversations. This is, like I mentioned, this is one of the reasons why I agreed to speak on this particular topic, is because now is the time to do this, because we are going to lose the entire generation that's coming here, because a child is not eating food. You put a phone in front of the child and the child is looking at the phone and eating his food. A child doesn't want to eat food also without being entertained. I mean, this is hopeless. This is a very hopeless and a very sad, actually, scenario. And I also want to share this one last, bit of information or a story, actually, which basically has been something which I came across many, many years back, but it made such an impact on me, and it still holds good. And I hope if people hear the story, maybe they can also relate to it. And the story goes something like this: that there was once a father and his kid, and they were just like really, really close. And the father, when he would finish his day's work, he would like to come home and spend time with his boy, and that was his almost favorite thing to do. So one particular day, he had a lot of work and he couldn't, spend that kind of time. So he thought that, okay, I'm going to go home and the boy is going to be waiting to engage with me. So let me just think of something that I can, keep him busy with. So right next to him on his office table, there was the map of the world. Okay, so he just had an instant idea. He took up the map of world, he tore it into small pieces, and he took a little sellotape and he put all these pieces into a little box. And he went home. He met his boy and he told him that, listen, I have a task for you to do, and let's see how long it takes for you to finish it. And the father explains to the boy that there is this whole picture of the world map, and you need to put the world map together. And the boy is all excited. He puts out everything on the table, and the father walks into his room and he starts working, thinking that, okay, now we should keep him busy for another half an hour or so, at least minimum, right? But to this man's surprise, within just 15 minutes, this boy comes to his room and says that, Dad, I have put this world map together. And the father is like taken aback, and he's like, how in the world did you do it so soon? So the father comes out to verify whether he's actually done the right thing. And he looks at the world map and immaculately put together. So he asked the boy, how did you do it? So the boy said, oh, it was very simple, just behind the picture of the world map, there was the face of a man. So I simply put the pieces of the man's face together, and the world just came together just fine. And this is something which actually is so true for life, because we keep worrying about how we will solve world problems, how we will do this, how we will do that. Let's first try to fix ourselves. Let's try to keep ourselves in such a way that we are never part of the problem, we are part of the solution. And then the world will at least have one less problem to deal with. So this was very, very inspiring for me as a story, and it has actually inspired, a lot of my, spiritual quest also, because now I want to be the best version possible of myself, and I'm still on the path, and it has been helpful, and I just hope that people get inspired in some way to do whatever it is that works for them, but to get that semblance, to fix oneself in a way that we are not part of the problem. And like I mentioned before, that apart from all the teachings that I have, come across, Sattu has been very, very fundamental in shaping, the way my mind is now processing information. And I'm very grateful for his presence in my life. Thank you so much, Andrew.
Thank you so much, ma'am. That story, especially that you shared in this last bit, was it's actually truly touching, and it's very eye-opening. You can say that, and even when you look at things in a different perspective, and you try to actually understand yourself and understand how you can make yourself better, and then think about हाँ बाहर जाकर दुनिया अच्छी बनानी है. And we always think like we want to change the world, but start from what you have first. And it's been really inspiring. This talk was amazing. Thank you so much, and I am very very sure that all of our participants who were here attending this talk have also definitely gained some sort of insight and will definitely take back something really important from this session. Thank you once again, and thanks to everyone who attended this session. And we hope to see you another Saturday. Have a nice day.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Sandra.